Hello, Sid here, and welcome to the Drunken Ork. What I want to do in this video is have a look at a model that I finished just before Christmas 2021, but never really had a chance to do this video over Christmas because of, well, other videos which were more time sensitive and just Christmas in general really. So I'm getting onto it now. It's early January, it's not too bad. The model in question is a Wazbom Blastajet. Now I wanted to build a Wazbom Blastajet to go with my speed mob, rules of which came out in the Archaeopter book recently. I do like the Wazbom Blastajet. I mean, look at it, it's great. But I just wanted something a little bit different. I figured if I had too many planes that all looked the same, that might start, you know, it's a bit boring. Even though you can only actually have two of them now. So one kit I do like the look of is the Archaeopter. When you look at it, you might think it doesn't look very Orky. It doesn't seem to fit in with, you know, the rough and tough, rugged Orky vehicles, and even the flyers are quite meaty, to be fair. This is quite, well, it looks a little bit Da Vincian, if that's the right term. My big mech is Leonardork Da Pinchy, an Ork inventor who is based quite heavily on Leonardo da Vinci. So yeah, the Orkhaeopter seems to fit quite well for me. So anyway, what I'll do is, I've tried to take photos as I worked my way through it. I think I've done better than I normally do. I normally photo or record step 1, 2, 4, 9, 13, 42 and the end. Whereas this one, I've only missed a couple out. So, you know, anyway, let's crack on with them and hopefully you'll get something out of seeing how I put it together. So first of all, I put the kit together, or at least I started putting it together. There it is, just with the main sort of hull. I haven't put the cockpit on. Obviously I'm not going to put the little AdMech dude in it, little titchy spud that he is. But I did put the big, I don't know what they are, what the AdMech call them, but I was going to run them as super shooters on the front. So they're on there. Now, just to give it, I like putting lots of little things, you know, just things in, which, you know, it's just different things to catch the eye and to look at on a model of a certain size. So that door, you can actually see there, I've already made some cuts. And on the second pick, you can see I cut the door out because I wanted a grot door gunner. I thought that would be pretty cool. So hence the door had to go. Now I wasn't sure if I was going to leave the door on, whether it was going to be opening, you know, it was going to be hanging down as a platform for him to stand on the bottom, or if it was going to be hinged at the top and it was going to be open outwards like a canopy. But this is going to be under a wing as well, so in the end I just missed it off altogether. But that, as you can see, there's a little bit of the bottom of that looks a bit rough and ready. So yeah, that needed to be dealt with. Before I got to there though, I had to start looking at adding some more guns to it, because obviously the Wazbom's got the 2 super shooters if you want them, and I always will. It's also got a smasher gun. So there we go, easy job. Got the smasher gun from the kit, the Blastajet kit, and stuck it where the smasher gun goes. Now it's just blue tacked in place there. I did make some little mounts for it, just again, I think it was the mounts it actually comes with, to be totally honest with you. But there it's just blue tack, just to see if that's going to be, you know, a nice fit. And there it is from the front, just making sure it's straight. Obviously there's a big bit of open real estate there on the cockpit. I put a skull on that in the end from the Death Dread kit, just to give it something. I didn't just want it plain or even glyphed up. I wanted something like a feature on the front. On the top there, I haven't put the hatch on the top. There was like a grill that goes on that, because I thought, do you know what, I'll have a little grot peeking out. Now the grot himself, the head is off the Blastajet kit. I think he's one of the little gunners. But the body, I had some spare bodies off, I think they were Gene Steel I cut, to be fair, off a Tower Rock, so I converted to a truck. And I had to sort of get the body and some shoulders up her arms for that. Snip off the very top section of the body and shoulders. I also had to cut down the middle of the body. It was just to remove a wedge, so the chest was narrower, and then I had to sort of whittle the shoulders so they were narrow as well, just so you would fit in that little vent. It's not a big vent, but even a skinny little Genestealer cultist was too hench to fit in there. And quite frankly, I didn't want to waste a grot body. I'll find another use for a decent little grot body, but Genestealer cultists, what can I do with them? And just so to make the grot easier to paint, I thought I'll leave the hatch off and I'll stick it on once the grot's been done. And you can see just behind the grot there's a plastic, it's all plastic, there's a little circular piece. Now I think that's got some sort of antenna on it, on the Archaeopter. But on the Orkhaeopter, it was going to be where the KFF was going to fit. Now the KFF is not something that I would personally choose to use in every game. A lot of games certainly, yeah, but not every game. So I wanted the option of taking that off. So there's actually a little magnet underneath that, and I'll magnetise the KFF when I put that on. You know, so I'll have the option of using it or not. There we go. As you can see where the back legs go there, I've already put some magnets in there. And as for the interior of where the door was cut away, that's just a bit of thick plastic card with a thinner piece put on top with some of that checker plate on, just to show the inside. To be honest with you, I wasn't going to spend ages doing a full interior, because with it being under a wing, with it having a grot stood in the opening, and also put some wires hanging down as well, just to sort of basically block the line of sight a bit. You don't really need to do the rest, because it's going to be pitch black in there anyway, so I didn't need to do walls or stick anything on. I was going to. I had a panel from the inside of a Land Raider, I think it was, which came with buttons and rope and, you know, little tools and that on it. And when I built the Land Raider, I thought, I'm not going to use that inside. That's a good little piece. That's waste. And I was going to stick it in here, but I just couldn't find it, so I didn't bother. But there, I've got the engines, the thrusters as well, are not glued in place. They can be removed also. Although, to be fair, it's not something you need to remove to transport, because they're pretty sturdy. There we go. There's me grot. I've popped him in. I'll give you a second to see if you can figure out where he's from. Any ideas? Yeah, it's basically the grot on top of the Warboss and Mega Armour. I just shaved him off. Just a couple of cuts, slice his soles of his feet off from the armour. I don't know why they attached him to the armour. Could have just bunged them in there and you could have glued them on, it would have been fine, or left them off, it would have been fine. You had fine options, but no, they glued them on. But it wasn't difficult to take them off. The front of there was a little bit of plastic card put on the front just to hide some of the gaps, and then a little mount just for the big shooter to stick on, just so the gun's further out of the hull and the grot stood on the edge. He's only blue tacked in place there. And you can see as well in the Smasher gun, I've put the mounts on. The mounts are the mounts off the Smasher gun, which are the two arms which come down and hold it. At the front, just next to the big shooter, and then at the back, that section there with the cable and what have you, is just a bit I snipped off a Killer Can arm. I think it was one of the shooter arms, because I generally use the big shooters for other things, so I've got a lot of spare Killer Can arms with the ammo drum and what have you, but without the shooter, and I just used one of those just to give it, basically it's a bit of extra support, and it just shows how it connects. Here I've got the legs. Now I didn't like the Admech leg. I liked part of the legs. I liked the bit with the wings. I just didn't like the actual the foot. It was just like a plate with a one tiny hook. So I've never put the grabber on the battle wagon. So I had a couple of spare grabbers. So a slight adjustment just so they closed a lot more than normal, because normally they're very wide open. So I snipped off some of the little pieces just so I could close it fully, and pinned them onto the Archaeopter legs, and there we go, Orky legs, very bird-like. Also roughed up some of those little canvassy bits, tatted the edges up, put some bullet holes in. You know, it is Ork after all. And there I just a little bit of plastic tube and just sort of like stuck into it, and I put I want to call them energy balls. I don't know what big brass balls that you get on a lot of Ork energy weapons. And I just wanted to stick those on. A little bit of extra decoration, and in my head it's some way connected to the teleport blasters, but there we go. Speaking of the teleport blasters, they are off the Dakka jet kit, or the Wazbom Mega Blaster kit really, of course, and they fit quite well onto the shoulder section of the wings. You can see there, I mean, there was a little bit of trimming needed to be done, I'm not going to lie, they're a little bit messy on the other side, but that's the side which is pushed up against the hull so you don't see it, so I don't really care. But yeah, I thought I'd have them mounted on there, that's a good place to put them. And there's just the wing. Once I've tattered it up a bit, again just cut some tears in it, shredded up the edges, and the obligatory bullet holes. Yeah, bit of Hessian bag, you know, like that you get in the supermarkets now, the plastic carrier bags cost 50p each. The paper ones are 30. Just cut a square out, use some tweezers to pluck away just to make it a bit ragged, and use that as a patch. And you go on, clapped a bit of super glue on it as well, just to sort of set it. Although the rest of that wing hasn't been tattered up yet. But there they are, both tatty, and I've put the actual fronts of the teleport blasters on there as well. That's just the tail of the thing, and you might just be able to see, if you follow the cable from the tail back to the left of the pic, you just see a little exhaust there sticking up facing the point towards the camera. They're just a couple of the large exhausts off the back of the Bane blade. I had some spare of those knocking about, so I stuck a couple of those there just to give it some extra exhausts, because it's got thrusters, but it's Ork stuff, it needs exhausts. I'd probably don't use them, it's probably all like electric engines and Tesla, yeah, but yeah, I want my stuff to have exhausts. There's a close-up of the cockpit. As you can see, I've put the skull on the front from the Death Dread, and there's a pilot inside. Now the pilot was just an Ork knob. I realised at this point I didn't take any pictures of this, but I took an Ork knob body and I made a couple of cuts at about 45 degrees from the outside of his waist down to his groin, sort of like cutting off his, like where the hips would be essentially, just so I could rotate the legs forward a bit to put him in more of a seating position. I stuck some of the truck driver arms on him, but they don't go quite as close together, so instead of joining up the steering wheel, I've left it as two sticks. Now what I haven't shown here, but what I did do later, was I stuck a couple of, they were just plastic rods, they were off some sort of rail, off maybe the Tow Rocks or something, I can't remember, and I stuck those coming off the bottom of the sticks, going down and slightly behind them, so they're not just handles he's holding, they are connected. I spent a couple of bits of plastic card just to make some straps which go over the holes where his shoulder pads would normally go, and also completes the straps so it looks like he's got a full sort of harness on, and give him a pilot head with some little goggles. And the circular, I've been thinking of them as cheeks, the Wazbom's cheeks, just to either side of the cockpit. I did think about putting something on there, little arms, maybe like little mechanical arms for doing mechy stuff, or I don't know how they would work, mind. But in the end I thought, you know what, I'm just going to leave them blank, because I'll be able to paint some like glyphs or checks or something on there, something a bit different. So yeah, I left those blank. And there we go, that's it, basically built. I've left the canopy off, and it's got the KFF on there as well, which was just the KFF off the Wazbom Blastajet kit, but I stuck, I think it's a chin plate off a Death Dread just over it, because it covered up an ugly join and also give us a nice smooth free blank surface I could do some painting on. There it is, primed. Not going to see much really because it's all black, but I've zoomed in here just to show, I don't know if you can see, there's certain points, for example if you look above the cheek, you see like a couple of shapes, irregular looking shapes there, a bit of rough texture. What that is when I want to do weathered stuff, I'll add, before I prime it, a little bit of super glue, thin super glue. I'll put a dollop on, or just pick it up with a cocktail stick and smear it on. I paint it on with a cocktail stick and move it around into a rough shape where I wanted some weathering to be, and then just give it a quick sprinkle of bicarbonate of soda. Sets straight away, no problems, and gives you a nice sort of texture. And that basically is where I will put a lot of the weathering, a lot of the rust. And you can see it's on the top of the wings, under the supporting cable, anywhere where there's a crease or around a vent, or just anywhere where you want it really. So from this point I did give it a coat of white with an airbrush as sort of zenithal highlight of all the pieces, but then I went over it and give it a coat of contrast paint, again through the airbrush, which was Talisar Blue from Citadel, and yeah, it was very blue, like really bright. Quite liked it, to be fair. I've not painted anything Death Skull that bright before. There's the wings. Now for some reason I spent an ungodly amount of time taping off the skin of the wings, so you can see on the top wing before I sprayed them, just so when I peeled it off, as you can see from the bottom wing, it had the original black with the sort of like, you know, the zenithal on. There we go. And with the wings themselves, to be fair, I just went over them with a coat of, again, used the contrast, just put it on with a brush, and it was Citadel's Agaros Dunes, I believe it was. But after I'd put it on, I then sort of thinned down some bone white, I think. I thinned it down into sort of a glaze and then built it up. So the bits closest to the wing supports are lighter and towards the edges are dark. The good thing about magnetising it was, even at this stage, that's it, everything together, and obviously I always put the silver on there as well, the metal bits, I was able just to pull it apart and do other steps. So this is where I was mentioning before the weather bits. As you can see, all the orangey patches there will have been just a little bit of super glue, a bit of bicarbonate of soda, and then I'll sort of stipple on very carefully, not too heavy, make sure most of the paint is off the brush. I was stippling on Mornfang Brown from Citadel, and then going over that again with Troll Slayer Orange, and you're just doing a very localised dry brush with that really. But it's just, you know, just to give it a bit of wear and tear, and all the chip and what have you. You can go around some of the edges, just add a bit of silver at the corners, just touches of it, just to show where the metal is showing through when the paint's chipped away. You know how to weather. Scratch it up as well with a saw before you prime it if you want. Just go around and just gouge some bits. Use a knife carefully, or a saw with a, you know, like a Dremel type tool. Now on the cheeks, like I say, that was going to have some glyph work on, and what I decided to go with, on one side anyway, was this, the Vitruvian Ork, which is now the sigil of Leonardork Da Pinchy. Obviously based entirely on the Vitruvian man. You know, you see some fantastic work on the sides of tanks and what have you. I'm not that good. I had a little stab at it here. It looks, I mean, that looks like I've done it with a potato, but thankfully it's quite a good deal smaller than it looks like than it looks on the screen. On the battlefield, it's still recognisable, you know, from a couple of feet away as to what it is, I think, and it doesn't look too bad. Although I decided to put some pants on him, give him a loincloth, and looking at the loincloth and looking at the way it was before the loincloth, I think I should have just left the loincloth off. But you know, whatever. And you can see some of the wear in there as well. Some of the stippling and dry brushing's gone well over the textured bits, just onto the flat colour. That's fine, because you know it's extra stain and extra weather. It wouldn't be exact, so I'm quite happy with that. There you go, as it's coming together, a bit more weathering on it. We've got the exhaust at the back painted red. You'll be able to see them a bit more clearly there, and a bit more metallics done. And there, the other cheek plate. We've got a Death Skull, blue Death Skull on there, just straight up. Clan glyph, and I painted the little window on the door which was shut, and just painted that as a green glow, to be fair. And there's a canopy on. Now I don't like a canopy on an Ork vehicle that hasn't got at least one window put out. I basically just drill a few holes in it, and and then snap out the middle bit. I could have went further, I could have cut more off. I thought that'll do. Just one little hole there. Doesn't need too much. And I give the skull in the front some horns as well, because it's, you know, death skull. Bomb rack at the back, which could be used as a stick bomb flinger in game. Again, not glued in place, turn it and pop it off, but I'll leave it in for the meantime. You can see I put the hatch on the top as well. So here's a base. I used the Wazbom Blastajet base as opposed to the Archaeopter. I'm sure the Archaeopter one was slightly different. It might be a bit bigger, I think. A couple of trusty bits of slate from the garden. Although now I do paint them. I was leaving them just au naturel, but they did tend to stand out a bit because natural stone looks very real, because it is very real. Whereas obviously models don't, certainly not mine. So a quick coat of black. Just prime them and then dry brush them grey, lighter grey again, finish off with a bit of white. Easy as that. Stuck to the base with a bit of Vallejo earth texture, basically paint the sand in. Clag all that around. Didn't stick any marine helmets or anything on this one, just some grass tufts to finish it off. And there's the whole thing disassembled, so it could be transported quite easily there. It's been fully weathered up, the wings come off. So you can see I put some rockets under the, well, I hope you can see. Put some rockets under the wings there just because I had some rockets. They've got no place in the game, but I just think they look cool. And it's a rule of cool always. And I highlighted up the wings a bit as well, just around the tears and edges and bullet holes and what have you, just with a lighter colour just to make it pop a little bit. Added some checks. That was pretty much it. So there you go. Leonardork Da Pinchy's Wazbom Orkhaeopter. And there it is. Yet to see action on the tabletop, but you know, it's got a place in me speed mob. Quite pleased with it. I tell you what I'm most pleased with, if I'm being honest, is the fact it's magnetised. All this, you know, comes off and just clags back on. Should I use it with the KFF? 25 points, get the bugging thing off, or 20 points or 50. I don't know how much it costs. You know, it's all on there. Legs, because if I try to take that somewhere like that, in a box, or in my car, or anywhere, it's not going to make it in one piece, is it? Let's be honest. It's coming home in bits. So, yeah, magnetising. It could be the future, you know. I've shunned it for years. Anyway, thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed that. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe. Share it, and give the bell a little tickle. Why not, eh? So until next time, take care.